Whether your toddler is getting ready to go down the slide at the playground, trying to climb a rock or piece of play equipment, climbing furniture at home, or one of the million other potentially dangerous things toddlers get up to on a daily basis, reminding them to be careful is something you might often do without even thinking. Of course, we all want to keep our children safe, and so with that in mind, reminding them to be cautious seems to make perfect sense. But telling them to be careful doesn't teach your child how to identify dangerous situations or keep themselves safe. In fact, using this phrase frequently can have unintended negative impacts on all aspects of their development. And it's not the only one. There are two other phrases that I'm also going to share in this video that seem effective in the short term but aren't great for medium to long term development. And don't worry, you'll also learn some phrases to use instead that are much more effective. Now you're probably wondering how saying a simple phrase can impact development, and I know it sounds strange, but here's how. When you tell your toddler to be careful, you signal to them that there is danger, but they have no idea what that danger is or how to avoid it. They just know that this person I trust is telling me that I'm in danger and I should be scared. Now this may be effective at preventing them in doing whatever they're doing in that moment by creating an immediate sense of fear. But over the long term, it can have unintended negative impacts on all aspects of their development. The problem is they feel that sense of fear, but they don't know what exactly they should be fearful of or what is creating the danger that you're warning them about. Over time, this leads them to be less willing to explore and try new things, as they start to worry that everything new is potentially dangerous. And this is where the problem lies. Encouraging your toddler to take manageable risks is vital for their development. These experiences allow them to test their limits, learn about themselves, and navigate challenges. And this helps to foster self-confidence and independence. But if they're always fearful of going outside their comfort zone, their ability to push their limits and extend their skills is reduced. And as a result, this reduces the number of developmental opportunities they experience on a daily basis. This isn't just limited to their fine and gross motor development. The reluctance to go outside their comfort zone can also have a flow-on effect in regards to their social and cognitive development. This sense of fear can also foster dependence as they begin seeking your approval before attempting anything new. Now, as with anything, there are varying degrees to this. I'm not saying you should never tell your toddler to be careful. However, there are other phrases that you can use that are more effective. So, next time you're about to say be careful, as they're about to do something adventurous, here are a couple of options that you could consider using instead. Let's say your child is swinging a stick around in the middle of a crowded playground. In this case, you want them to stop what they're doing, but rather than saying be careful, you want to provide specific instructions. For example, you might say, put the stick on the ground, you might hurt someone. In this case, they know exactly what you want them to do, whereas be careful is vague. This means you're more likely to get an immediate positive result. By also saying you might hurt someone, you're avoiding that fear response. Rather than feeling like they're in danger, they understand why you want them to put the stick down. Now, there may be situations where you don't want them to stop what they're doing, but you do want them to consider their safety. In these cases, you can encourage them to consider their safety by asking questions like, do you feel safe? Or offering reassurance with, you can do this, just take your time. And sometimes it's us as parents who are fearful, which, let's face it, it's quite often the case if you've got a toddler. Now that's perfectly normal, and if and when this happens, you want to think about how you can support them in order to help alleviate your fears. For example, if they're climbing a tree or the monkey bars, instead of saying be careful, stand close by so that you can catch them if needed and casually say, I'm right here if you need me. That way, you're not giving a sense of what you're doing is dangerous, but you get reassurance knowing they are safe with you there, and they also get that feeling of confidence and reassurance by having you there if they ever need it. Because some toddlers, like my son, have no sense of fear whatsoever. By reframing our responses in these ways, we're empowering our toddlers to explore safely while fostering their independence, confidence, and allowing them to be exposed to as many developmentally beneficial experiences as possible. This next phrase is something you might find yourself saying whenever you take your toddler anywhere fun. For example, you're at the playground and you've had a great time, but now it's time to leave. And this is where the real fun begins. You're trying to persuade your toddler it's time to leave, but they're not budging. In a moment of desperation, you say, bye, I'm leaving now, and start walking away without them. After a moment of defiance, suddenly they're running towards you, tears in their eyes, pleading, "Don't leave me." This reaction with them running after you feels like a win in the moment. You've managed to get them to leave. But telling your toddler you're leaving without them as a way to get them moving isn't a great idea. And that's because toddlers take things very literally. If you say you're leaving, they don't see it as a bluff or a strategy to get them to act quickly. They believe it could really happen. The message it sends is that your love and presence are conditional. They start to believe that if I don't listen right away or behave just right, my parents might leave me or stop loving me. These thoughts can make your toddler feel insecure and anxious. Moreover, if you keep saying you'll leave without them but never actually do it, because truthfully you'll never really leave them, they start to believe that your warnings are just empty threats. This erodes trust because they learn that you don't mean what you say. It also teaches them that they might not have to take what you say seriously, which isn't a lesson you want your toddler to learn. With this in mind, next time you're at the point of needing to leave, instead of scaring them into leaving by saying, "Bye, I'm leaving now," give this a try instead. First, start by acknowledging how they feel with something like, "You're having so much fun, it's hard to leave." Then set the boundaries by stating, "But it's time to go home now." Next, you want to try and make leaving a bit more enticing by talking about the exciting things waiting for them at home or the next destination. For example, you might say, "At home, we're going to play with your favorite cars." This creates a positive reason for them to want to leave. Then you want to help them feel in control and part of the decision-making process by offering them two choices. So you might say, "Would you like to walk or should I carry you?" After doing these steps, if they continue to find it difficult to leave, you want to acknowledge their emotions and then help them leave. So you might say, "Leaving is so hard. I'm going to help you now," at which point you would pick them up and leave. Adopting this approach not only makes leaving less stressful for both of you, but it also reinforces your toddler's trust in you and their understanding that they're supported and loved regardless of the situation. Oh, by the way, before I move on to the next phrase, if you'd like a list of even more phrases to avoid and alternatives to use with your toddler instead, I've included a link to that down in the description below, so go ahead and grab that if you're interested. Next up is a really common phrase that's often used when toddlers are doing something they shouldn't. But the thing is, saying this can actually encourage them to do it more. To show you what I mean, I want you to imagine your toddler is at the dining table and they start throwing their food on the ground. Immediately you rush over, arms waving, and loudly say, "Stop throwing your food." But instead of stopping, they just do it again. Saying "don't throw your food" or "no throwing food" would lead to the same outcome. The reason this makes them do it more is because they get something that they absolutely love from you. A big animated reaction, which although not funny to us, is often quite funny to them, as well as your undivided attention. It's cause and effect. I drop food, mum or dad come running and look really funny and fuss over me for a couple of minutes. This is a win for your toddler. If you want to effectively guide your toddler away from undesirable behaviours, whether it's food throwing, playing with PowerPoints, touching other things in the house that they shouldn't, throwing toys, climbing furniture, or anything else you can think of, try this alternative. Instead of telling them what not to do, tell them what to do. Just telling your toddler what not to do is complex for them because it requires them to firstly understand and comprehend that you're telling them not to do that, despite your animated actions and attention being rewarding and motivating for them. And then they need to be able to figure out what you want them to do instead, which is challenging for a toddler if you haven't given specific instructions. Sticking with the food throwing example, next time this happens, here's what you can try. First, tell them what to do. In this case, it would be food stays on the table or goes in your mouth. This is much easier for them to understand as you're removing the guesswork and just telling them straight up what they should do. This clear way of communicating makes it easier for your toddler to follow your instructions, and it also reduces their frustration because they aren't constantly hearing no, don't, or stop. This in turn can help boost their confidence and self-esteem because they don't always feel like they're in trouble or doing something wrong. Another way you might try to boost your little one's self-esteem and confidence to explore and develop is by showering them with genuine praise. You might say things like, "You're so clever," "You're amazing," or "You're so smart." While these phrases might seem encouraging, research suggests that they might not be the most effective way to praise your toddler. In fact, this kind of praise can sometimes have unintended negative effects. Watch this video next to learn about the different types of praise and how they impact your child. More importantly, I'll share one simple tweak you can make in the way you give praise, which will encourage your toddler to explore and develop as well as build their self-esteem.